Oh, actually, I should start here, right? Hello, everyone! Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap! I am battling with YouTube here over the past couple days, and every time I load the page, it says it's not available. So I don't know whether we are recording or not. Maybe Kavarkinator can tell me. Yeah, it still says that. This video is unavailable. So I have no idea. Kavark, are we running on your end? Can you see?
Yeah, it's going.
All right, cool. All right, so welcome back to the Frivolity. This is our little free video that we do for YouTube on a Monday to Friday basis. Hopefully I'm not too long-winded here. I had a really nice daily brief session we had on CTO of TRI, Sjord, giving our site members an update on the tools that he's working away on. Really cool demonstration of internal charting platform that he's building, so super stoked about that. And of course we also had a quick overview of what he was seeing through the corn and some stocks. And actually interesting, he's feeling a little bit more optimistic about the corn here than I am. So hopefully for the bulls, his view prevails and we head higher here. Tough to say in the short term. Suppose we'll get to that in a bit. As well, on Mondays, we have TRI Ogier out of the UK. I think he's living in Wales now. Come on and just do a nice little overview of what he's seeing fundamentally going on in the world and any key data points to watch. Obviously, we have two major problems going on in the world, and interestingly enough to see, the United States of America seems to be spiraling into chaos here. Is this the end of the U.S. hegemony? Tough to say. The bankers still seem to like the system the way it is, so I think they'll just keep diluting the U.S. dollar. The question ultimately is, do we actually run out of buyers of all these massive amounts of U.S. bonds? We will see. Only time will tell. And probably in the short term, unfortunately, we were sort of talking about this in the daily brief. It's a brutal reality of life. It sucks. Nobody really likes it. Capitalism 101. Unfortunately, the capitalists, they're not really too concerned with things like civil unrest. Hell, there were a lot of capitalists that did very, very well through the German tyranny of the 1930s. So, in an interesting way, you might actually find that the stock market keeps ratcheting higher, and that just almost fuels the fire for the discontented public, which is kind of a sad commentary of capitalism. And at some point, this is going to bite the capitalists in the butt. We will see. I don't really consider myself part of the system, if anything, because I trade my own capital and I'm well diversified, and I don't have a mortgage, and I'm not like heavily indebted to banks and stuff. I sort of sit outside the system. I just observe and I just watch, and of course I take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. I have a great empathy for anybody who lives in that government world life. It's a very tough life. You're basically not allowed to think. I'll tell you, the institutions that we put in place over the past 30 years, they are blatantly unfair to the public. And unfortunately, they always say you reap what you sow. So the capitalists should be looking around, not surprised whatsoever that the public has had just about enough of this. The sad part about it, of course, is we're juxtaposing all of this with this horrific virus. And the worst part about it is that probably all of this social discontent, part of it is a function of people being locked up in cages for a couple months. Obviously, social injustices are sort of the trigger. If anything, I often make similar sort of comparisons to raising and managing my low-functioning ASD special needs son with the way that the institutions of our society manage the broader public. It's actually, the similarities are shocking. So, to manage the public body in, say, something like the U.S. penal system, They employ what's called MANT training, developed by a gentleman by the name of Mant, and it's all about the hierarchy of needs and Maslow's hierarchy and how do you address behavior. And the interesting thing is that behavior usually doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. Usually it has to have what we call setting events. So you might argue that the ridiculous tax cuts of the George Bush years were setting events. They, in essence, gutted the public safety net system and transferred the wealth back to a very small portion of the population. That's going to piss a lot of sort of the public off. That doesn't trigger an outrage, but you add that, and then like decades of these policies of very low social spending programs with things like racist events. And sadly, in the Daily Brief, we kind of talked about the various different sort of racial responses around the world. And interestingly enough, a lot of people around the world are actually very empathetic to this situation within the United States. I would argue that this brutal murder of this gentleman in Minnesota, that was a trigger. So you have a whole bunch of these setting events that sort of set the public body up discontented. Then you get a trigger, like something like the murder of a citizen over something like a $20 bad check, which is almost laughable. And really, laughable is not the right word. It almost makes you cry at how little human life is actually valued in this world. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. The point being here that we've had the trigger event, and now you are finally getting sort of the outpouring of all those setting events that have been building up for many, many years. And I also think, too, it's really important to note that a lot of people that watch these free videos from me, there is a sentiment within the public that for some reason I'm pro-USA and I'm anti-Asia or anti-Europe. That's actually not true whatsoever. What I am is pro-freedom. I am pro-constitutional rights. I am pro-democracy. I am pro this species evolving and, stop feeding on itself. So, if you are a totalitarian dictatorship, you're not going to get any empathy out of me. But at the same time, too, and I do find it fascinating that the United States of America right now, the Constitution and everything about individual rights is really being tested right now. If this was a totalitarian dictatorship, tanks would have been moved in, people would have been murdered on the streets, and the prisons would be filling up. So let's watch how this plays out. I think, the whole world is watching. I think the whole world is really watching how this sort of establishment within the United States is going to react to this very public outpouring of discontent. And we will find out whether the United States of America really is a democracy or not over the coming months. It's fascinating. Let's see what happens. Maybe democracy's days are numbered in this world. Tough to say. Anyway, there's a little rant to start your morning. As a capitalist, of course, like I said, I would be in favor of keeping the free markets. And frankly speaking, things like governments coming out and saying, no, we will not publicly disclose the actual numbers of our companies, whether they're actually making money or whether they're basically stealing and lying from you, because those are state secrets. Well, that's bullshit. If this is an open and free market, it should be open and free and everybody knows what's going on. So, again, sort of talk about, what is Brian pro? Brian is pro freedom. Brian is pro the truth. Brian is pro the light. And I don't like tyranny anywhere. All right, so having said that, will be interesting to watch the U.S. dollar as it goes through this serious test. My feeling here, as I had sort of said earlier, is people are asking, why did the stock market bottom the way that it did? And I might just make the simple argument that the banksters, of course, they control the size of the economy, and they have now since the 1920s, 1930s. Just get used to it, everybody. It is the world that we live in. When the U.S. government goes out and approves a stimulus bill, a new debt of $2 trillion, the U.S. Federal Reserve itself says we're taking interest rates to zero. That's lowering interest rates. In essence, they even publicly said that reserve requirement lending has gone to zero, so there is no sort of 10 to 1. You can lend out as much as you want. And if interest rates are as low as they are, there's not really that much of an implication of going and rolling debt out to a later date. My feeling is that when the government came in and guaranteed the bottom in the market, it did exactly that. What I did find really interesting reading the rags here recently is that I'm actually starting to hear a lot of, okay, we were wondering we're going to open up the economy now, and obviously that means government stimulus and that kind of stuff. We're going to try and wind that down. And I've actually read some articles that are saying that, actually we were doing way better off having everything closed. Now that we've opened up, we don't get any stimulus and there aren't any customers. So really being open up isn't really that great of a thing. So we might find that, now that the government guaranteed the bottom in the market way back here, we might actually have to find that we have to do some backfilling now here. I mean, what a surprise. We did talk a little bit about the fact that, there is a gap on the weekly S&P 500 price chart right back up top. So don't be surprised if, and wouldn't that piss the public off to no end? That the stock market just keeps grinding higher. And, of course, the inequalities just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And just never ends. One market that I think will be our sort of tell as to whether the risk-on trade is still back on is our oil. And you remember I talked recently about how I didn't think we were going to be able to get through these resistance levels. And you can see the market just keeps banging up against this level. It's almost like, stocks keep moving higher. It almost feels like right now we're almost in a rise-only market, and there needs to be some sort of catalyst that goes, all right, that's it, the top is in. So, I had sort of made reference last week that if we did M out here, then okay, the top is in. And then I also said last week that, it sure looks like 1 low, 2 low, 3 lows. Those aggressive crude oil traders, they might even be hunting longs here. What a crazy world we're living in, eh? So I don't know whether I'm ready to get in front of this thing yet here. I don't see any failures yet. And as I said there just a moment ago, Fed's got rates at 0. I wouldn't even be surprised maybe our top comes in when the Fed says, okay, well, we can start thinking about bringing rates off of 0 again. Maybe that's when we get our top. Who knows? I also said, too, earlier today, and I think it's really important, don't get into the business of predicting markets. Just trade your setups. Go with whatever the market gives you. And the market has a bad habit of embarrassing people that say the market will top here, the market will bottom here. You might be right, even 7, 8 times out of 10, but I guarantee you the one time that you're wrong, that's when the public's going to let you know. So I just simply say don't get into the business of making predictions because you don't know what the hell's going to happen. So U.S. dollar looking heavy. That growth, that sort of risk-on vote continues. I was leery about buying into the idea too much last week on the initial break of these lows, but you can see we are pressing further. And really now you can start going A, B, C, Ds. We're probably going to move all the way back down into this bottoming range where we originally bottomed. Imagine that. That probably produces that blow-off top in the stock market, and maybe crude pops its way up through 35 and we start chugging higher. It's interesting to see how the bond market, kind of following U.S. dollar, is starting to show, serious signs of failure through our channel here. I still think the best trade was that straddle, and when we ultimately get to our destination, we'll go back and look at the straddle numbers so you can see what the end result was there. Nothing really to do right now there. But fascinating, right? We've got risk off, coming off, risk off, coming off, risk on, going up, risk on, kind of waffling here. I can't really tell exactly where crude wants to go, but it does look like it's pointing higher. Interesting how the gold sort of still stuck in its channel up against the top end of his range here. And I thought this was fascinating. This little silver trade, I think that is the trade here, just because silver is so cheap relative to gold. You can see, remember we talked about that gap fill on the gold-silver ratio, so that's been done. They've actually gapped the lower market lower again here today. That's a bit of a surprise. But at least this is starting to come down from these absolutely insane nutso ratio levels. My hunch is, support is actually back against this midpoint, which would be about 70 to 80 to 1. So there's that gold, just sort of sitting there, parked, very similar to the bonds and the US dollar. And then here's our crazy silver, which just keeps charging its way higher. And what was interesting about this was the comment that I made on Friday. You remember we were chugging up here. I said, gee whiz, I think this 1922 is going to be hit either by the end of today or first thing Monday morning. So it's fascinating to see that they actually they gapped the silver market higher right on the open, took it all the way up into these chaos levels, and then we ran out of steam here. I don't see any reason why we can't get up into this 19 and a quarter here. But I think the reason why we sort of stalled on the lower time frames, like I said, is we ran into a couple chaos levels. This 877, this 469. You can really, off of this 4669, you can really see that's where the market gapped higher, moved up, then it came slamming back down. Then it said, well, do I want to lose it? No, I want to come back. And you can. I don't think we've actually left this chaos level here. The market's still fighting with it. But should we resolve higher? And I don't see any reason why not. But this would be my next sort of cluster of levels. This was just this 877 and 4669. That's what's got the market's attention today. But long and short of it here, I don't see any reason to touch anything. If anything, our setup, if we go off of the daily chart, said that move stop to this move stop to trailing levels hit here. It's actually right on that 4669 level. So we had sort of suggested recently, move your stop, maybe move your stop below that little battle line now. I suppose an aggressive trader might say, look, this might actually be an island top. So if we lose this low from overnight, maybe I'll just get out there. But on balance, I don't see any reason why this couldn't be hit. And me personally, I would just be like, you know what, this is patience and discipline mode. Just leave it alone, let it do its thing. So I do find it fascinating that silver keeps wanting to work higher. And remember, silver is an industrial metal. This is, sky is falling metal. This is, well, we believe there's inflation, but we believe the economy is growing, which means that we need to buy silver to meet that industrial demand. So that's actually, ironically enough, for the economy, us moving into the next cycle, the next greed cycle. This is actually what you want to see. So actually, ironically enough, that's actually a good thing in my eyes, what we're seeing here. For the economy and prospects going forward for the future. For God's sake, somebody think of the children. All right, so there's your risk on, risk off conversation. Interesting. I mean, it's you can see risk off looks like it's getting a little heavy here. Interesting, the gold, though, just not cooperating there. Specifically with regard to the stock market, this should be, in my opinion, harvest season. So if you did have the balls to step in on ideas when they were just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you should be harvesting those gains here. So I'm a little leery about going and strapping on too many new positions. Just because we're ironically enough, the harvest for crops is the fall. Well, I would say the harvest for stock market buys is into this window. And if we look at something like the Russell 2000 relationship to the Dow, you can see we're starting to look a little heavy up here. We haven't M'd out yet. I was pretty pleased to see this reversal, and of course, a bunch of our little names took off like a rocket through this. We haven't M'd out here yet. And actually, Kevin and I were going through just looking at all the various different spread relationships that we like to follow. I'm not seeing, signals that are saying that the stock market is done. We like to follow the XLY, XLP. This is a relationship, intermarket analysis relationships, part of our education program. That's a handy tool, so no M there yet, but you do see maybe M's could potentially be forming. We also like to watch things like the transports versus the Dow. So you can see this would be Dow theory. So if the transports M out and the Dow actually moves to new highs, that in itself is a big sell signal. So we don't have anything there yet. And if we look at something like the Russell 2000, last thing that I said there, we don't have any M's there yet either. So I don't see any reason. And of course, if we look at the actual price chart itself, I don't see any, top here in stocks. There's no M's yet. You can see the battle that's going on. We'd have to lose this trend line, then M out on the other side to actually get that sell signal. So you can see here, for example, we lost the trend line. We put in an M on the trend line, but we lost the trend line, but no M came in on the other side of the trend line. So my hunch is, as long as we hold this trend line, we're still going to sort of slowly work our way higher here. And while we slowly work our way higher, no failures in Russell 2000, stocks moving higher, risk off, assets coming down. Well, might as well make some money. So here was a fantastic one. CETX. I was even squawking about this in public videos, and somebody even said, yeah, Brian, man, you were barking about this goddamn thing a week or two ago. You knew something was going to happen here, and sure enough, it happened, and bang! We got filled on sell half on double orders. In fact, you can see it opened up at 245 here. And a bunch of us had orders to sell halves on doubles at like $1.50, $1.75 because we were in buying down at the bottom here. And we got filled at 245. So this is the great part about gaps, is sometimes you get fills even way beyond what you were expecting to get filled at. Long and short of it here, bunch of TRIers, very happy campers today. And I don't know whether I mentioned it or not. I think I did at the top of the broadcast, but I'll just say it again, just because this guy's a goddamn rock star. Some people on the site, and we have one group in particular, are veterans, who like to follow esoteric products, things like warrants, which is a derivative. I don't recommend anybody in the public to even think about trading warrants. But our veterans who know what they're doing, what do you think? Kevin went in and picked up a bit of this down at 1-2 cents. How do you think he's feeling today? Last trade on this thing's 24 bloody cents. That's ridiculous. Ah! You can't tell me there isn't money to be made in the market here. I mean, congratulations, Kevin. You did this, didn't you? I think I seem to remember you said you were in this trade. Come on,
Yeah.
this is your moment to shine, dude.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see where I was actually in from. 0.0133.
Oh, Jesus H. Christ, eh? Way to go, dude. Way to go. So, these are the kind of monsters that we build at TRI. This is what we do. The great part about it is this trade, it was just sitting there. Most Wall Street fat cats, they will never tell you about this stuff. But at TRI, we're an open book. I want you people to succeed. I want you to do well. I want to make a positive difference in this world. And if any of you were able to capture, take advantage of this CTETX, maybe you just bought stock and got free stock now. Maybe you bought the warrants and you're fucking shopping for Lambos. I don't know. But way to go, Kevin. I'm so proud of you. So proud of this community. Rinse and repeat. And we have another TRI SOF meeting tomorrow night, Tuesdays. Same bad time, same bad channel. Let's see what happens. I can't wait to see what's on Kevin's shopping list here. So, congratulations, sir. Well done. Congratulations to everybody at TRI. We all deserve a pat on the back today. Heading on over to crypto. Well, I really would like to be saying, yep, crypto's getting ready for a big breakout. You're going to double your money here. I don't know, $9,500 a crypto Bitcoin. Does it really make sense that we're going to see a jump up to 18,000 here in the next week or month, even quarter? I don't think so. I mean, anything can happen, and of course, that's just my opinion. Unfortunately, my message to the public has been sort of, I'm just in hurry up and wait mode. And I still think this consolidation is playing itself out. It was really interesting. We have a new site member who's really into astrology. And I had suggested that two-thirds the apex, that's usually when these triangles like to resolve themselves. It turns out that he's very interested. Something big's supposed to happen June 6th celestially with Venus and all that. So, if this played out sort of natural, normal, technical analysis, blah, 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 we should see. And, like I said, 2016, my thinking all along is we should see a sort of similar pattern to what the last halvening gave us. So maybe that's when we finally get our dump. All I'm going to say here is this thing could break either way. It really could. I don't think it's in anyone's best interest to, bet the house that it's going to be bull or bear. And especially given what's going on in the rest of the world, 2020 is not the year to bet the farm on anything. And of course, as I said repeatedly, that I actually would really not like to see it rip higher and then dump. That to me is not a good pattern to see. I would prefer that we get just a nice, healthy, natural correction down, bottom of value, back down into that sort of top cost of production sort of window. That would make sense to me. And then we can start our next leg higher. But, it is what it is. Right now, we are stuck. And what's fascinating about this, like I put out a chart, it's kind of funny. My Rastaman, where's Rastaman? Rastaman, you're around here somewhere, aren't you? There's Rastaman. What I thought was really interesting about this, again, there's that sort of triangle resolution. I suppose we could probably... maybe I did it off of that. Well, but that other triangle, I guess off of the MEX chart had this support line a little bit lower. But what I did find really interesting about this consolidation, just drawing trend lines, is we did really respect that bottom trend line well. Jumped back down into the wedge, then came up, respected the top end of the wedge, and wow, what do you think, guys? Are we coming to some sort of apex here or what? Now, usually what happens, like I like to call these like bow ties, because you can sort of see, right? This is the left-hand part of the bow tie. I don't like that yellow. Right? There is the left-hand side of the bow tie. Here is the middle part of the bow tie. And really what this implies is that this is actually our, where are we here? Yeah, there's our trading range. So we'll make the other side of the bow tie. Okay, there's your bow tie right in there. So we're definitely coming up to the apex of some sort of, I would call this like a market symmetry study. A market often likes to repeat its behavior, and we're operating in a very sort of bow tie fashion. So with that said, unfortunately around bow ties, you can get some really wild action in here. And I do find it interesting that I, a week or so ago painted what, I like to call this squiggly line theory. And it's interesting too that we had a billiard ball fractal pattern that suggested that we needed to trade back up into this level, wash all these weak hand stops, and then dump. So this, the fact that we're building to this apex, something big is coming soon. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to get some pretty wild price action in here. The problem is you can't believe this. If anything, what you have to do here, it's kind of like what I just said there about trend lines, is if this is indeed a bull, then we have to see it break out through the top, then come back, put in some sort of bullish structure, and away we go with our trade. we might, and I've seen this happen so many times, is we might just head fake our way up here, crap out, and then roll over and head down. I've seen that happen a gazillion times. So, unfortunately, the worst part about it is over the past week or two, I've been like, there's nothing going on here. There's nothing for me to do. And now we should finally get some volatility injected into the market. But I can't believe the volatility until I see the volatility plus structure. So it's kind of like, Brian, you just basically said that you're not doing anything. Yeah, you're right. And I got to let this sort of play out. And then once I see the play out on the other side, then I can start making decisions as to new trade ideas. Interestingly enough, as Bitcoin is sitting here just sort of picking its nose, other cryptocurrencies are working their way higher. And I do still like this bullish bot setup that's working away on Ethereum. And it's actually encouraging now to see Litecoin trying to perk up here. I don't really have anything to work with off of Litecoin. But like I said, we had a pretty level, nice head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders that broke out. So if there was a trade, and this was the message that I gave to sort of the whole community today, is, if there are trades, I don't think the trade is in Bitcoin. The trade is in sort of these intermediate names. So something like an Ethereum is just working away, doing its thing, move stop to scratch. Worst case scenario on this, and if Bitcoin does totally crap out, whatever, crypto just collapses, well, you just get stopped out at scratch. Big fucking deal. This was another one that I was talking about in the show today, this NEO. We were talking about it on the site through the weekend. You can see how it has had move stop to scratch, move stop to trailing now. So now NEO players are starting to look for lower or higher lows to start locking in profits. So this is actually where I think the money's being made in crypto right now, not really in Bitcoin. So we kind of talked about that in recent videos. Obviously very pick your names like this XTC. You can see it just sitting at the breakout level. You just go on name after name after name. That's the kind of market state that I think we're in right now. And interesting to too, sort of finish off this, there is the Ethereum chart that I like to show you. Move, stop to scratch, level hit, blah, blah, blah. It's interesting to see that the poop coin index, it ultimately did hit the bot objective here. Go figure. That's the way it goes. We keep just grinding. We're now up into what I like to call a parking garage level. So we're starting to get nosebleedy up here. This is not really the area where I want to think about hunting longs. Hopefully you made some money. Like I said, if you had the balls to step in off the bottom, and the stock market looks the same way. Why? Because the bankers took interest rates to zero, said you can, the U.S. government just went and leveraged basically about $20 trillion worth of new loans that can be put out there by the banksters. The banksters have said, come and borrow all the money you want. They're not turning off the taps. They're turning them on. And so as a result, even crypto goes up. Right? And if anything, I might argue that some crypto has actually outperformed. And to me, that's actually a very, very bullish sign for crypto a year or 2 years from now kind of thing. So, okay, hopefully all that rant helps you see the market from my perspective. And of course, you get to see how Brian actually, in this case, makes money from trading. Yay! All right, everybody, have yourselves a great day. Hope that rant wasn't too long. All the best, and bye for now.